The isolated and very challenging path of shamanism that is at the same time can be highly enchanted or magical and mystical. So let's discuss in this video of what it is that you could experience when you feel the calling of learning about deep spiritual healing work, shamanism. You could see yourself maybe as a light worker, starseed, whatever kind of identification you want to label on this whole concept. Then what it is that you might be starting to face, what it is that you can expect. So for my personal experience, not paying attention to this whole journey, moving away from all the things that we are expected to do as human beings within this society, within this culture, it feels like you're moving off trail. You're moving away from your path, and the more you do it because you don't want to recognize the truth, the true calling that you must follow for yourself. If you don't recognize that and you fall out of alignment, that is where you will face your suffering and the pain and the struggles and the hardship and all of that, which is at the same time also part of your journey to actually remember, which has a double meaning, remembering, but also to reunite with the calling, the path that you were meant to follow. It is this God-given purpose. It's like ingrained within your soul, within your memory, that you must here fulfill living your life here on planet Earth. So before we move further, let's go a little bit back to the beginning. I mean, the real beginning of why actually shamans has really been put down here on Earth for thousands and thousands of years, from the early beginnings of humanity, mankind. When we think about how the Earth has shaped his form, the oceans of our planets, of course, were created by stars falling out of the heaven that contained the water, the asteroids, and the meteorites that really bombarded the Earth, which brought the water, the ocean here on Earth. And according to evolution theory, according to Darwin theory, eventually organisms started to crawl out of the water, out of the ocean, and that really formed evolution here on planet Earth. Eventually that turned into apes, and apes turned into mankind. Fascinating concepts, beautiful. And then we have, of course, the theory of religion, of mother religion, that God put us down here on Earth. The third option, which has yet to be confirmed by science itself, is that the third option is that actually humans are an hybrid. Because if you really look at the DNA of a monkey compared to a human being, there is a major difference. It's like the part within our DNA is completely different. It has like a telos at the end of it, which really should contain that we have the ability to integrate higher consciousness within our existence and higher intelligence. So of course we have DNA that forms our physical appearance, our body, flesh and blood and everything, our vehicle, but within our DNA we also, of course, we have the ability to hold consciousness, and that is really our blueprint. So the third theory is basically that we are a hybrid. Now we can go really back to, okay, so where does this really originate? And let's go with the concept like maybe other forms of higher intelligence has brought DNA seeds here on this Earth as a way to experiment if they could create a body of flesh and blood, the human body, but with the ability to be a vessel of higher consciousness that could really travel through multiple states of dimensions, consciousness, awareness and all of that. So we could walk here on Earth, be able to tolerate the atmosphere, the nature, and all the elements that we are exposed to, the sun, the winds, the rain and everything, all the elements that we could tolerate that, but at the same time we will be a vessel vehicle for being able to integrate higher levels of consciousness. So let's go back to the beginning of, let's say, Atlantean times. And the core purpose of the Atlanteans, of course, they had maybe hundreds of thousands of years of slow evolution of being like a tribal civilization and all of that. But eventually they grew out to a larger civilization, to a highly advanced civilization. And amongst them were, of course, the priest, the priestess, who were actually really about DNA activations, or activating our DNA so we could bring in higher levels of consciousness. So they were really like, let's say, the real beginning of the shamans, who were here like a bridge between human life on Earth, working with the elements and all of that, but at the same time also have the ability to communicate with other more advanced beings from other advanced civilizations living amongst different star systems, galaxies and whatnot. So there are forms indeed of higher intelligence wanting to fulfill their role, their purpose here on planet Earth, to ascend the Earth, nature, human life, the human spirits and all of that. So for us, there is a bridge needed between the physical and the non-physical. And within the civilizations of Atlantis, of course, their purpose was really also to activate the different energy centers or grids around the Earth, so we could hold more consciousness, to hold more space, to be able to bring in more light consciousness, to open up different vortexes or energy centers around the Earth. Now, they have come a long way, but let's go with the concept that eventually they couldn't really hold the amount of power that was eventually given to them, and eventually like the lower states of consciousness of greed and lust and hunger for more power and wealth and domination and all of that, eventually other advanced beings from advanced civilizations, maybe other star beings, angels, spirit guides and whatnot, they said, okay, well, we can't see that these civilizations here on Earth are going to destroy the ecosystem, the Earth, and we have given them too much power. We need to delve down a little bit. We need to take back a little bit of their spiritual power, because they are currently abusing it and they are completely destroying the ecosystem of Earth. And that could be a part of the downfall of Atlantis as well. Now, that was like 15,000 years ago. Eventually, of course, human life continued to exist, but let's say from our 12 strands of DNA, I made a meditation about that as well from a long time ago, where we had, let's say, the power and the ability to accelerate our nervous system to hold more spiritual awareness and power and consciousness. They had to tune it down to, let's say, our current double helix, which is more being able to perceive our third states of consciousness, our third dimensional states of consciousness, the awareness of the physical world around us, using our 5 basic senses. If we go into higher states of consciousness, then we can be able to perceive more of the non-material worlds of existence, and that's kind of really where we are at right now, is to reactivate and reopen these higher states of consciousness. But for that, of course, we need to be able to optimize the vessel, the vehicle, the body, in order to be able to process that. So it is a two-way street, absolutely. So amongst other human civilizations, of course, there were also shamans, women, men, the medicine woman, medicine man, the wise one, who had been through different lifetimes, that really were already able to hold more information within their states of being, within the states of consciousness, who were there for the tribes to assist within their healing journeys, healing process and whatnot. But it is not really like, okay, you know what, I think this could be an interesting job title, I will take the responsibility to go and take it over. This is a very deep journey of remembering and activation and going through the trials and tribulations, the sacrifices, the pains that we had to go through, the divinations and the initiations in order to be activated to hold this kind of consciousness. If you think about the movie 300, about the warriors in the Greek time, you know, the boys who were maybe 14 years old, who were coming slowly into puberty. Of course, what the men did from the tribe, they sent the boy out into the mountains, into the forest, go and survive, see if you can survive the wild animals, the wolves, the bears, the elements, and all of that. If you can survive and you will be able to come back, then you are initiated into manhood, and then you will be ready to go and join the hunters, the warriors and whatnot. And if you have that honor to be a warrior, and if you succeeded with that, then you could eventually evolve into becoming a king, holding and building an empire. If you will be able to succeed with this, then you will be able to embrace more the elements of the lover, and through the lover we can access the energy of the magician, where we will be able to counsel and to channel and to advise, to be an oracle for ourselves, for our community and for the people around us. So there are loads of different stages we had to go through, which is actually almost impossible to all do this in one lifetime. That's why the shamans are those who hold a very old soul that is definitely not for everyone, and who have already been through so many different kind of lifetime experiences directly from their ancestors, but they also have the awareness and the understanding that there's no really one thing, like everything is just coming passed over from generation to generation, but there's also a thing like we could access multiple states, multiple realities, multiple lifetimes all in once by opening up the mind, where we can access deeper levels of knowledge, wisdom and understanding of how life operates. So if we take, for example, if we look to the shamans of Siberia, of really where the true word shaman came from the Russian regions, of course they were tribal civilizations who really had to endure extreme weather conditions, extreme polar conditions, which was of course very, very difficult, and not many people were able to survive these type of conditions. And that's why they also had to live in very isolated regions. And if we look to our ancestors, they had none of the current comforts and luxuries that we currently have in our modern day, in order to, you know, kind of like be comfortable and numb ourselves down. They really had to really live in the most extreme conditions, and through that, how less of comforts you have, how more you will be able to listen and pay attention to the whispers of your own soul and from the spirits and from the guides, in order to survive, to find guidance, to find comfort, to find support of what it is that we must go to. We were there, you know, in all this crazy wilderness, which was a scary place to live. We needed kind of like a guidance and support system in order to kind of move along. So we were living very, very closely together with nature, the elements. We will be able almost like live closely with the animals as well. So for those who have been living on these regions, for many of them, they really had to endure a very long journey of lots of sacrifices, suffering. They had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations and climbing mountains, metaphorical speaking, in order to gain these levels of wisdom and understanding. It's almost like the shaman, they had to go, or they had to endure almost like a lightning strike, almost like literally, where a part of them actually died, literally, and then they had to come back to life. They came back to life because they almost have touched the afterlife. They have touched the realms of moving beyond physical reality. And that's part of the journey as well, is where of everything you thought you had to be, of everything you thought you were as a human being, your whole personal identity, your self-image, and all of that, it completely gets distorted. You get highly disassociated from yourself, the world around you, from other people, in order to find your voices, to find your insights deep within your own soul. And that's really like a part of the journey as well, is where we must kind of like isolate ourselves, is to seek solace in solitudes, because within the solitudes we could hear the whispers, the voices and the insights, the inspirations from our spirit guides, from our ancestors, from our star families, and from many other advanced civilizations, beings who are here to assist us in the planets, nature, the earth, the animals, other human beings to evolve and ascend. So what that means is that eventually you will be able to relate with lots of other people, but no one will be able to relate to you anymore because of everything that you have seen and have experienced, what you have felt and what you had to go through. For somewhat, you kind of feel like you are like miles ahead of the majority of the people. And you can come and join where most people are at, which is fine, which is perfect. We can be social, we can become empathetic, we could see where they are at, we can bring understanding to them. But you will also feel like, you know, I don't really belong there. This kind of like drains my energy. I would rather continue to my place of solitude where I could do my work. That is really where I find my purpose, and for following these breadcrumbs that can leading us towards that what we must bring to the world, the knowledge, the insights, the wisdom, that's kind of really where we find our fulfillment in life. So then eventually, you know, if you think like, oh, do I really need to go through all of this? For what exactly? I must admit, it's not a very glamorous path. It sounds cool, you know, we think about the aesthetics around it, of what we currently see on our social media. If we take, for example, you know, Norse spirituality, the old Norse spirituality around paganism, of that what our Vikings perhaps used to practice as well. We think about the story of Odin, you know, and Odin, he actually used to hang himself on a tree for 9 days in order to also cut out of his eye, so he could also open up his awareness and consciousness to deeper insights. So he also had to go through, let's say, a deep initiation in order to seek for knowledge and wisdom. And that's really where, of course, the world tree established from, the world tree with all the 9 different worlds of our realities, different worlds in our lower worlds, the middle world, Midgard, which is representing, you know, Earth and all living life on Earth, and of course the upper worlds of our gods and heavens and all of that, that through this work we could also be able to access that, because that's of course where it's all metaphorical speaking. Of course, it's all mythology, but I strongly believe it is actually based on something. It's not like some kind of fantasy that we are taking over in modern movies like The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbits and all of these beautiful series. It's actually really based on something. That's really what I believe, because, you know, how more you dedicate your time into that, how more you open up the mind, the spirit, you will start to see, you will start to know what is the truth. So eventually, what is this all leading towards to? You know, you might be asking, why do I have to really go through all of this stuff? You know, what does it include, you know? Will I be rich? Will I be famous? Will I enjoy the fruits of my labor? Now, because you might have already been through so many things in life, maybe you have already achieved things, or you have already accomplished things. You maybe you had businesses, you chased money, you chased success, you chased fame, and all of these things, and you all came to realize that that doesn't really fulfill the soul at a deeper level. Maybe you can enjoy it for some time, but only for a very short period of time. And then you realize of what it is that you really must do here, that is going to give you a deeper level of true fulfillment, and what it is that you feel connected to. You know, you feel more connected, and that will bring a deeper level of fulfillment, where you achieve a level of sovereignty over your own self, your spiritual body, your light body, and then you come to realize that we don't really need that much. Our ancestors, the only thing they needed was support and guidance from nature, the elements, and from the spirit gods, goddesses, in order to feel supported and guided into a new directions. They didn't have these type of illusional luxuries and comforts that we have nowadays. So of course, you know, we live in a modern world. We must, you know, have things in order to somewhat feel like protected against the elements. But we also come to realize is that we don't really need it in order to feel whole. You know, maybe we could have it in order to, you know, enjoy the kind of like tiny little fruits of our labor. You know, we don't really live, of course, in a tribal community, in a hut, and we had some hunters around us who just brought food for us, and we gave medicine to them or healing to them, and it was like a process of reciprocation, but we were giving unconditionally because we were supported. Now we live in a different time. We live in a time where, of course, we need to pay rents, we need to pay the bills and all of that. So of course we do need eventually perhaps build a practice, a healing practice, where we can give healing support that will support us, but you know, maybe not with extreme luxuries of what we think, what the world and society, our culture tells us that this is what we need in order to be a whole human being. Another thing is that we are seeking for a deeper, more authentic and intimate connection with ourself, with nature, the world around us, with the spirit world, with the elements, and also with a very few select other human beings who are on a similar journey than we are. And that is kind of like when beautiful, enlightened energies come together, men, women, masculine, feminine, and really create like a unified, intimate experience that could really ascend us to a higher state of consciousness as well. And then we can perhaps really go into the whole elements of building and preserving our sexual energies, which can also lead further into spiritual awakenings, rising the Kundalini energies that can also, you know, bring to higher levels of clarity to ourselves. It's not like how we are indoctrinated, like moving from A to B and then that's it. This will be like a multidimensional experience, that if you dedicate yourself to the spiritual path, then this is something that you want to protect, it's what you want to nurture, it is what you want to conserve and preserve, and that can lead to a much higher level and a deeper level of satisfaction and fulfillment. So once again, this is like kind of like a brief overview. Of course, there are many elements that we must go through. It can go very deep. I made different videos about it as well, but I kind of really like to focus a little bit more on the masculine part, the masculine, healing the masculine wounds, because how more we do that, then of course we can build a world where the feminine energy can evolve and ascend as well. But for us as men, we must fulfill our role, our purpose, in order to be like a safe harbor for the feminine energy to, you know, continue to ascend as well. So that's kind of like a role that I want to focus on as well. And because I am North European, I kind of also like to focus more on the North European traditions practiced by perhaps my direct ancestors as well. But I don't really like to limit myself to anything, because knowledge and wisdom is universal, and I think that's why for many parts of the world there's knowledge and wisdom that could be shared and intertwined, and that's why I don't really like to, you know, put everything within a box, as I'm also constantly learning and evolving about these very beautiful aspects as well. So if you could relate to any of this and you feel somewhat connected and you want to share your thoughts, then of course feel free to leave them below. A couple of years ago I also made videos in England when I was traveling there through Scotland, Avebury, Stonehenge, also came to loads of beautiful insights. So if you want to go and check out these videos, you could see me from a couple of years ago, and that's why you could see like, hey, I'm also on a path of constantly learning, developing and evolving. Alright, I look forward to seeing you in one of my next videos. Take care for now.